You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Hristodoulou.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today, as Week 2 is now in the books, we had ourselves a pretty entertaining Game 1 on Monday Night Football. Chargers-Raiders, though, Game number 2, a little bit slower, a little bit uglier, a little bit messy for one side, more so than the other. We'll, of course, discuss everything as we work our way through this week's Power Rankings. But as always, I invite you all to comment down below. Let me hear from you as we go through these rankings from worst to first, things you agree with, things you disagree with. Let me hear it all from you. How would you rank the teams? Maybe give me a top 5, a top 10, maybe a whole 32 if you're feeling really ambitious. But as always, I invite you all to discuss with me as we work our way. As always, it is a tier list on top of being power rankings, so we will go 32 to 1, but we'll rank them through the 5 groups. Up on the screen right now, you are seeing last week's power rankings that we laid out as we went into week number 2. So with that in mind, if you want to take a look at this, pause the video, get a good look. We're going to clear the board now, and we're going to work our way into week number 3's rankings here. So starting at the bottom, working our way up to the top, we begin as we always do with the probably picks top 5 category, starting out again from worst to first here within even the tiers. So at the very bottom, the Panthers sitting at 0-2. Dolphins are in there as well. Not a single team, if I should add, has a win in this group here. Browns above them, Bears, and then the Saints are going to round up the categories. So we got Panthers, Dolphins, Browns, Bears, and Saints. Now the Panthers got behind early. Ultimately, offensive mistakes just put them behind the 8 ball. And from that point forward, you're basically just playing catch up the entirety of the football game. And I'm a little bit worried about the direction Carolina's heading into right now. I know that the back half of the football game post halftime, Bryce Young, Hunter Renfrow started to get hot. The offense started to move a little bit more. And, some things that maybe you could build off and feel as a positive going forward, but there is a piece of me that feels like maybe that crawl back into the game is more of an indictment on Arizona, because this is now the second time where they find themselves in a comfortable spot, allowing the team that they're playing to kind of creep back into it and ultimately kind of end up into the game being a nail biter when it should not have been. So I don't want to take too much away from Carolina, because at the end of the day, they did claw back given the opportunity, but I'm in this position right now where I just don't really feel good about the trend that we're seeing from Carolina, from Bryce Young, from that offense as a whole. Definitely some concerns there. Dolphins right above them. Noise definitely getting pretty loud as far as just what is currently going on with Miami, coming off of what was one of the ugliest losses we've seen from the Dolphins in some time during this Mike McDaniel era, to then coming into this one, home opener of the season. You have the New England Patriots, who Tua, at this point in his career prior to this game, had not lost a game to New England. And then, of course, you have the lead. You steal it with a punt return touchdown. You're feeling really good, and special teams goes from giving you a score to allowing a score. And then that final drive, not being able to get into the end zone. Obviously, you had the Devon Achane play that got called back, unfortunately. So there's a lot to kind of digest from this game. Like, even the fact that Miami started down bad, they were down 12-0, clawed their way back in. Like, this game had a lot of drama, a lot of intrigue. It was a bit of a yuck bowl, but it ended up being really entertaining. I think that as goofy as it was to hear Mike McDaniel say to win games, you have to win games, I do think in a sense that does ring true. But ultimately, this feels like Miami gave it away. Like, we should not be in this position right now. And now going into Thursday Night Football, you have the Buffalo Bills, who 2-0, absolutely decimating the Jets this past week in a 30-10 rout, have you in their crosshairs. It does not matter whether this game is in Miami or in Buffalo. It does not matter where this game could be played. Something tells me we are in there's like a pretty good chance that we're seeing the last game of Mike McDaniel coaching the Miami Dolphins, especially if the game goes really sideways. I'm a little bit concerned about Miami and just the current direction they're in. Browns right above them. I will give them credit for holding the Baltimore Ravens to 3 straight punts during the first half, but that's about it from that point forward. Joe Flacco is going to be QB1 going into Cleveland's game against Green Bay this week, and I think that's probably for the better, just because throwing in either of the 2 rookies in Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders into a matchup against a Green Bay Packers team that looks like they are primed to make a legit run to the Super Bowl this year, I don't think you want to be throwing anyone else in that game. The Browns are what the Browns are, and that is a team that is going to be struggling this season, no matter how close they keep certain games. This is a team that wins 3, maybe 4 games, maybe 5 if a few things really break their way. Like it would take a massive turnaround for Cleveland, and it's just not something I foresee personally. And going through 2 weeks, yeah, you held things close against your rival Bengals last week, but this feels more like the true version of the Cleveland Browns that we got against the Ravens this year. Bears 0-2 right above them. This had to be one of the most Bears losses that I have seen from the Chicago Bears in some time, and probably going back to like the Hail Mary of last year when they lost to the Commanders. Chicago's first half goes as follows: touchdown, 3-play punt, fumble, turnover on downs, interception, touchdown. If that doesn't sum up Chicago football in a bit of a nutshell for the last however long, I don't really know what does. Bears fans, I'm sorry. I was pretty high on Chicago going into this week. I thought maybe they'd give the Lions a much better fight. And now as it currently stands, I don't know what to make of this team. It's way too early to make assumptions on Ben Johnson being the head coach of Chicago, but from what we got from this team this week to just what was a heartbreaking loss to Minnesota last week, it just feels like same old Bears. And I know it's not. It's a new era, and jury's still out on Caleb Williams as well. But 2 weeks into 2025, and it's just same old Bears, and that sucks. That sucks, to put it frankly. And then to round out the group, the Saints at 0-2. I want to give them a lot of credit. They are the best of the worst right now, I will say that, because they keep staying into the fight week after week now until the final whistle. Spencer Rattler coming off of one of the most underwhelming 3-touchdown performances I think I may have ever seen. Like, it was a tight contest with a 49ers team that's admittedly banged up themselves, but for them to be hanging on the way they are, this is another team I've pegged for like 3, maybe 4 wins at best, something along those lines. And for them to at least be fighting to the finish line and not just getting completely rolled over week in and week out. Like, they had the tight game last week. They had the tight game again this week. They're at least putting up a fight. And for what it's worth, yes, the quarterback situation's pretty dire. There are some young, talented guys on both sides of the football for this team. I do really think, though, that as far as like getting a quarterback and moving forward is just something that needs to happen this upcoming offseason, and this is going to be one of those ugly years for the Saints. The way the Falcons are looking, the way the Buccaneers are looking, it does not feel like winning a division is in your future, and after 2 weeks of not being able to muster up a ton of points, that's just where I stand on New Orleans this season. And through 2 weeks of football, I feel fairly justified in those feelings. So it is what it is. Going into the next group, though, we have ourselves the Swirling the Toilet category, the down but not quite out teams, and teams that are dangerously close to having their season slip away from them, but there's still maybe a sliver of hope, being that it's only week 3. We are looking at the Titans at the bottom of the group, followed by the Jets, the Patriots, the Jaguars, the Giants, and then the Dallas Cowboys at the top of this group. Now, the Titans at 0-2, I will say this. After 2 weeks of football, I believe in Cam Ward. I really do. The offensive line has absolutely got to figure it out. Otherwise, Cam Ward, rather, could be seeing the same fate as some of the other litany of quarterbacks that we're seeing getting hurt just coming out of week number 2 of the season. Through 2 games, you are looking at 34 total pressures and 11 sacks, according to NFL Pro's numbers. They've got to protect Cam Ward. This defense looks good. It's just that the offense is having a really hard time getting anything going because you are not getting the protection you need when it comes to throwing the football. You're not getting enough push when it comes to running the football. The O-line has got to get figured out between now and the end of this season. Obviously, still plenty of time to do so, but that's probably the biggest flaw through 2 weeks that I can identify. You're just not getting enough push up front in general for this Titans team to be successful, despite the fact that the defense, even if they did let up 33 points this past week, and I think that's more of a nuanced conversation than just what the box score says. It's a matter of this offense not being able to keep the ball in their possession, the defense being on the field too often, the offense not being able to back up that defense. Like, there's a lot that goes into it beyond just 33 points allowed to a Rams team that admittedly is probably going to go pretty far themselves this season. So I like what we're at least getting from Cam Ward and the Titans so far this year. I just need to see it from that offensive line. We've got to see it. The Jets right above them. We just talked about same old Bears. We might be getting same old Jets, like a glimmer of hope in week number 1, then getting absolutely smashed in week number 2. You go from 4 straight scoring drives allowed to scoring on just 2 of 10 offensive drives from both sides of the football. Like, just not ideal in the slightest either way. Now you have Justin Fields in the concussion protocol. A team that kind of duped me last week into believing maybe this team is going to be really good, and then ultimately you see them going up against essentially the king of the AFC East in the Bills, and it looks just like a team from last year or any year prior. That's a New York Jets football team. So it's obviously week 2, plenty to work through, but this is not a good way to be in at this current moment, especially with your big money quarterback that you went out and brought in this offseason, now sitting in concussion protocol, potentially missing this upcoming week of football. We'll see what happens there. But not a great start. The defense, not where it needs to be. And that was kind of supposed to be the backbone of this team. Like, great defense, good offensive football that does not make mistakes, and that would maybe get you somewhere in this season, but as it currently stands right now, the defense can't do a lick of anything. Patriots right above them, monumental step for the team. I think that just seeing this Patriots team fight in a way that I feel like I have not seen fight since Tom Brady left to the very finish was probably the most impressive thing, or just like overall takeaway from this game here. It's the first time that the Patriots have put up 30 points since 2022 when they played the Cleveland Browns. It was like 47 games ago that the Patriots last eclipsed 30 points, and it was a 38-15 win over Cleveland. You got to go all the way back to the Mac Jones era. Drake May looked far more like the 3rd overall selection, and the offensive approach overall drastically different when you look at the numbers from when it comes to like play calls, from the runs to the passes to play action, things like that. Like, it was a vastly different offensive game plan, and one that seemed to suit Drake May a lot better. So I'm curious to see if maybe we see the game plan for the New England Patriots, at least offensively, geared a little bit more towards what we got from them in week 2 as opposed to week number 1, to try and capitalize on that. They got a tough test in Pittsburgh coming up next year. The defense now has had a couple of rocky games to this point here. Definitely need to see Christian Gonzalez get back in the fold sooner rather than later. Not sure if that's in the cards for this week, but I do think that there is some hope for this Patriots team. You're 1-1. You got your first win out of the way very early on in the season for Mike Vrabel and his new regime. A lot to look forward to in New England if this is the team that you're going to see. There were some mistakes that honestly you probably should not have allowed Miami to get back into the game with, but if you can clean those up, this can be a solid football team somewhere along the lines of like a middle of the pack group. Jaguars right above them. I've got to say, losing to Jake Browning, who threw 3 interceptions in that football game once he came in to take over for Joe Burrow, is kind of a damning statement on them as a whole. The last couple of drives were mind-boggling to watch as well. Like, you have a turnover on downs right in front of Cincinnati's end zone, which could have helped you put that football game away if you could just convert. Then, and that's after you get a big interception as well, too. Like, you are in prime position here to put this football game away. And then defensively, you proceed to allow a 15-play, 92-yard go-ahead drive. Like, just an absolute nightmare scenario for Jacksonville. Very curious to see how they bounce back from that, because that's like a very humbling loss, especially coming off of a game where you dominated a team that looks like they're going to be bottom of the barrel. I thought we'd be having a little bit of a different conversation about Jacksonville once I saw Joe Burrow go down, but ultimately here we are, ugly loss. A couple of picks from Trevor Lawrence, and you could not capitalize on the backup quarterback of a Bengals team, and ultimately lost at the hands of their defense, essentially. Giants right above them at 0-2. Listen, sometimes it's a little bit deeper than just the actual records of the football team. Like, I feel like if you're just ranking teams based off of records alone, you're not really trying to actively look at the football teams. And like an 0-2 team and a 1-1 team can have very different stories behind them. When I look at the Giants, I've got to tip my cap to Russell Wilson, because in the year of 2025, I did not expect to see 450 yards passing coming out of him. Malik Neighbors is obviously just absolutely insane, and Wan'Dale Robinson needs to get some love as well. Those two together, if Wan'Dale Robinson can reach the potential that was hoped of him from his initial drafting, paired alongside a Malik Neighbors, you might have yourself like a solid 1-2 at wide receiver if Russell Wilson can look more like this week than he did last week. The defense, though, I'm a little bit worried about. I thought this unit would be better. They made made some good improvements during the offseason. The edge rushing trio that everyone's been hyping up, myself included. I feel like that's basically what you've gotten as far as good is concerned, is your edge rushers, and then that's about it. So that definitely needs to be worked on. But I mean, if you would have told me that the Giants were putting up 37 points in week number 2 of the NFL season after last week's performance, I definitely would not have believed you until I saw it. So I got to tip my cap there. This is an 0-2 team that seems like they might be a little bit better than just what their record is showing, hence why I have them above some teams that are 1-1 right now. It's just a matter of getting everything put together. I could be wrong on that. Maybe they get scooted down the board in the next week or two. We'll see, but plenty of time between now and then. The Cowboys right above them to round out the group. Cowboys fans, and this does not get said often, but it needs to be said about this man. Be thankful for Brandon Aubrey. He is a huge weapon for special teams. And yes, I say weapon. It's not too many people that just step into the NFL, especially as a kicker, and just walk in and they're automatic. Like, his conversion rate of field goals, I believe, is hovering around 90% right now. That is not normal. If he continues the pace he is currently on and just keeps on doing his thing with the leg that he has, because he can make it from a distance, he's extremely accurate. Brandon Aubrey, career trajectory-wise, if it stays the way it is looking at GOAT conversation as a kicker. Yes, he might not find himself in some of the big moments that other guys like Adam Vinatieri or a Justin Tucker may have been able to put themselves into, but just in terms of pure production, when he sets foot on the football field, a 90% conversion rate as a kicker is incredible. That being said, allowing 450 yards to Russell Wilson, and I know I just tipped my cap to him a second ago, in 2025, and allowing the New York Giants of all teams to dump 37 points on your defense clearly shows that there are some bigger issues to fry on the defensive side of that football that maybe we all thought weren't as pressing coming out of week 1 because they had a solid game against the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, but we'll see. There's a reason why I have them right below that 500 mark, because that scared me. A good job coming out and getting the win, like, that's huge, but that game scared me. Moving into that Jeff Fisher 500 club, the Raiders sitting at the bottom of it. We then follow them by the Texans, the Vikings, the Bengals, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and then the 49ers round out the group here. Now, the Raiders, at this rate, this is one of the more complicated teams to kind of figure out where they are, and we're only 2 weeks in a season, so it's hard to really know what any of these teams are, but you can at least get like a slight gist when you, depending on when you see the really good teams playing well and the poor teams playing poorly. The Raiders now have a bit of a mixed bag here. They have what was a win that was a bit of a grindy one against the New England Patriots team that no one really expects a ton from if you're not in New England. And then you come in and your offense just kind of gets completely stonewalled. Geno Smith has the 3 interceptions. Aston Genti puts together his second week of about 40 yards rushing. He's now averaging 2.7 yards per attempt. They've got to figure it out. Defensively, I feel pretty solid about the Raiders. I will say that. Like, I was honestly in the camp that I thought the offense would be more productive and then the defense might end up being the issue here. But we're kind of in a situation where it's a little bit flip-flopped. Like, we got one good game out of Geno Smith, 362 yards week 1, and then we got this mess that we got on Monday Night Football. And Genti, again, has not been getting much of an opportunity to really run the football effectively. There's a lot to work through with this team. I'm not quite sure what to make of them, hence why I just slapped them right at the bottom of the 500 club, like one of those teams that I feel like this season goes either way. The Texans right above them, my only problem with them really is their offensive line. And this is kind of goes to my whole 0-2, not all 0-2 teams are made the same, like not all 1-1 teams are made the same. There's nuance to the conversation here. The O-line will be the demise of this football team, as C.J. Stroud is being pressured currently as it stands at a higher rate than he was even last year. And he was pressured at 38% or so and some change last year. That number is over 39 right now, according to NFL Pro. And he's already been sacked 6 times this season. And it's a shame because defensively, you clearly have a very strong unit. You have good corners, you have good edge rushers, you have a good safety tandem in the back. Like, you have everything you could possibly need defensively, and it shows. 14 points allowed last week, 20 points allowed this week. Yes, unfortunately, a back-breaking long drive that ultimately lost you the football game, but your offense kind of put you in a position where you could not put the game away. So it is what it is. This is the situation you're in now. However, I will say this. you have plenty of time to get this offense to gel. And if it does not start to work in the next couple of weeks, if I'm the Texans, and I mean, this could go back to like the Laramie Tunsil trade, maybe you need to go out and get somebody. If there's anyone available that's in a situation where a team's not going to re-sign a guy, it's a disgruntled person, whatever it may be, go find some offensive line help, because that is the flaw of this team right now. And it's ugly. It's making it difficult to run, even though Nick Chubb was shining in some instances this past week. But like you're making what should be a really good offense look awful because the O-line is a mess. And it's not like it was a secret. At least to me, it wasn't. I came into the season spouting off about that, and here we are through 2 games, and it's not been good. They've got to figure that out, and once they do, I think the Texans could rock and roll and be a legitimate playoff team. Right above them, we have the Vikings at 1-1. I'm not just going to jump off the like completely jump off of the cliff with the whole like JJ McCarthy's absolute trash. Like, yes, I think there is a bit of pause for concern in regards to the fact that he basically has 1 quarter of good football played in the last 2 games, and now he's hurt. Not ideal. Now we're going to see the Carson Wentz show, but he's young. It's his 2nd game in the NFL. You got to give him some time. That being said, it was an ugly football game for what it's worth. And it sucks that you have that in the back of your mind, and then you go high ankle sprain, and he's probably gone for the next like 2 to 4 weeks. And if it's 4 weeks, you're looking at a potential return against like the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's just not the most ideal situation to come back in from, coming off of the game you just got out of with him. So the defense should keep this team alive. They held Atlanta to 5 field goals on the Monday night loss. Run defense folded a bit, and that is supposed to be Minnesota's strength here, so that is definitely something worth keeping an eye on right now, but tough spot for the Vikings. Bengals above them at 2-0. This is more just about the Bengals than it is about the game. Credit to them for getting the win. Like, shout out to the defense for playing big, for all the conversation that went on about how this Bengals defense was going to be trash all season long. Credit to them for doing what they had to do to hold this game tight. And then, of course, I think it fairly poetic that it's Trey Hendrickson getting the sack to wrap the game up at the very end. But I got to give them credit for getting this win minus Joe Burrow. I think the big conversation, though, that really needs to be had, and I say this oh so respectfully, I really, really do, and I mean this, Bengals fans, at this stage, drafting Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell, bit of a mistake. Take that for what you will. Jamar Chase, unbelievable wide receiver, unbelievable individual accolades, sure, argument to be made that helped you get to the Super Bowl that one year, but since then, it's been a freaking mess. And what have you gotten by drafting Jamar Chase other than being able to brag about having the best wide receiver in the NFL? I kind of feel like at this stage, if you just had T. Higgins, you had Penei Sewell, and more money not going to Jamar Chase going into that offensive line, we're not talking about Joe Burrow missing as many games as he had to this stage in his career. We're having graphics compare him to Andrew Luck. I feel like I've seen this before as somebody who grew up rooting for the Colts. Just feel like I've seen it somewhere before, except Andrew Luck didn't even have Jamar Chase. So, I don't know. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do to change it. You could point to the inabilities of the Bengals just overall throwing money at the O-line and it not working out, and having to spend draft capital on defense because draft picks have not worked out for them defensively either. So, it's not a perfect one-to-one, but I was a Penei Sewell guy as opposed to a Jamar Chase guy for the Bengals when it happened. And I definitely swallowed the pill of eating my words for the last handful of years. But here we are again, 2 games into the season. Bengals finally got the 2-0 start that has eluded them his entire career. And now Joe Burrow's hurt because he's been sacked 200 times in his entire career already to this point. And he's missed how many games in his career? That's absurd. And he's played 6 seasons now. On to the next team, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Bit of an up-and-down game for Seattle, but a big win on the road nonetheless. Couple of picks coming from Sam Darnold. One was a bad pass. The other one tipped ball. It is what it is. But, I mean, you look at guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, Cooper Kupp, Kenneth Walker, all those guys making big plays. You had some good plays from the defensive side of the football as well, taking advantage of a big Pittsburgh Steelers gaffe on special teams. Good win altogether, especially on the road, 31-17. I mean, wasn't perfect by any means, but a good, solid win on the road, literally cross country, as Pittsburgh and Seattle, they're about as far apart as it could get. Not the farthest distance between two teams, but they're definitely somewhere in that conversation. So good road win nonetheless. Cardinals right above them at 2-0. I kind of touched on this earlier, but I guess my big complaint right now is that Arizona keeps taking this good lead in football games and then proceeds to just like allow the opposing team to hang around. If they could just stop doing that, I would feel a lot better about Arizona. The fact that Carolina found their way battling back late in that football game, and I really don't think they should have been allowed to do so. And then even the week prior with the Saints, and just how I personally feel about the Saints this season, the Cardinals should be a more comfortable 2-0 team, and I'd probably have them higher here if they were, but the fact that you keep letting your opponents creep back in is kind of scaring me. But overall, like, everything that they're doing looks good, from offense to defense for the most part. Like, there's nothing, like, this team clearly went out and improved themselves this offseason, and it shows with the start of the season, sitting at 2-0, getting good wins over what I would deem lesser opponents at this point in the season. I'm just very curious to see them play a team that's somewhere within like this 500 range to a playoff contender. And then to round out the group, the San Francisco 49ers, Mac Jones, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, a W, dished the ball out to 8 different people. He targeted 10 different receivers altogether. Jawan Jennings looks like he's good, and he's back rocking and rolling, which is great. This is probably the best game I've seen from Mac Jones, and that might be period. And especially because, and it's more so because of this specific situation to the game. When you see the fumble that happens at the start of the second half, that is a situation where in Mac Jones' past, you see him start to fold. Like, that first like back-breaking mistake gets made, and then it kind of snowballs. And it's not something that like, it's not like, oh, it's only happened once or twice. Like, it's kind of like a recurring theme in Mac Jones' career. But you finally put him now into an offensive system that is well-oiled, well-designed, a literal machine when things are rocking and rolling. You have a Christian McCaffrey flanking you. Jawan Jennings has clearly proven that he is a much better wide receiver than some people have anticipated to this point in his career. You have talent that you're working with on offense, backed by a great offensive mind, and a defense that maybe not quite the unit it was a year or two ago, because they've just had so many names plucked off of them for being so good. But you put him in a great position, and what does he do? He has a good game, deals with a little bit of adversity really, really well, where he would have maybe struggled even further in years past. And the 49ers are sitting pretty at 2-0, and honestly, you kind of have to feel pretty good, at least about the foreseeable future, while you wait for Brock Purdy to return. Like, I feel like you could have came out of this game feeling far more concerned than anyone may be, other than the fact that you just don't have Brock Purdy right now. Moving into the playoff hopefuls, and as a reminder for everyone, the way the playoff hopefuls and the Super Bowl contenders must be laid out, there must be, at all times, at any given point, 14 teams between both categories, because this includes everyone that would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. There must be a division winner from all 8 divisions, and then 3 wildcard teams from each conference. There's probably some Seattle fans that are wondering something right now, if you have not already commented about it, that I'm about to answer in a second here, so just let me get to it, and hopefully my explanation is good enough for you. Maybe it might be, maybe it won't be. That being said, for the playoff hopefuls, we are looking at the Steelers at the bottom of the group, the Colts right above them, then the Broncos. We have the Falcons. Oh, my notes are getting all screwed up here. Give me 1 second. The Falcons, the Lions, the Commanders, the Chiefs, and then the Rams to round out the group. Now, the Steelers, again, Seattle fans, I'm sure you are all wondering where the Pittsburgh Steelers are on this list, as your team literally just beat them, and you're probably now asking, well, how the heck do you have the Steelers above them? This is the issue that I run into every year, because of the fact that it's A, power rankings, but it's also B, a tier list at the same time. I have to have 7 AFC, 7 NFC teams in here. And the way I look at the AFC right now, Pittsburgh would be like that number 7 seed, and hence why they are in the playoff hopefuls. When you do power rankings / tier lists like this mixed together at the same time, I have learned in the now 2 years I've been doing this, you get some weird instances like this. Hope that's a good enough explanation. Just because the Steelers are here does not necessarily mean I think the Seahawks aren't better than them. They just beat them, so I think that is a good case to be made already as it is, but it's just kind of how things fall because of the tier list itself. Take that how you will. If you don't like the explanation, sorry, it is what it is. That being said, the Steelers, The Caleb Johnson kick return blunder really did the Steelers in this game, and I don't really understand how that happens. And for my Steelers fans out there, I know coaching was just kind of the thing that you were bringing to me. I get it. I understand that. Depending on how you feel about just the coaching of this team over the last handful of years, I think could maybe help you understand why things like that are happening and why they are not. But it's unfortunate because you have an opportunity down 17-14 to potentially go ahead and take a lead, and you ultimately find yourself down 24-14 in one of just the wilder things that you've seen. You also had the tipped interception off of Calvin Austin's hands in the end zone that hurt the team as well. You're only getting 3 points off of a Seattle interception and a missed field goal on back-to-back drives during the earlier portions of the game. Just a lot of just miscalculations, not taking advantage of opportunities, and that's why the Steelers are sitting at 1-1 right now. And to credit to Seattle, they capitalized on all of it. Good on them. They were the better team on Sunday. That being said, right above them, the Indianapolis Colts at 2-0. I will say I am willing to admit that I was definitely off on where I thought the Colts were going to be this year. I did not expect to get what we have gotten from Indianapolis these last couple of weeks. Daniel Jones has yet to lead the Colts on an offensive drive that doesn't amount to points in one way or another, just like everyone predicted. And then, of course, Jonathan Taylor, just at unbelievable running back. It's funny because I did put him at number 10 in my running back rankings this past offseason leading into the year. And me just eating humble pie every single time he touches the football. It's fine. It is what it is. I'll eat my words. No worries. I will say this, though. I don't really like that win over Denver. I really don't. Like, credit for being in that game to the very end. Don't agree with the officiating, blowing that whistle and calling that penalty the way they did. That feels like it should have been an L, and that's why I have Denver right above them. And this is where my beef with Denver comes into play. And maybe it's hurt feelings because I picked Denver to win that football game as well. Where the hell was the defense in this game? Not really sure. Would have loved to see some more pressure, maybe an extra sack or two, but it just felt like the defense had literally no answers for a Daniel Jones-led Indianapolis Colts team that I even still now to this point don't really believe in, but they're 2-0 and a convincing 2-0 at that to this point that I need to at least respect what they're doing, even if I don't necessarily believe in it. It was a better week offensively for Denver, and here I am. I don't believe that Indianapolis is better than Denver. Point blank, period. Denver won that game. Kicker missed a field goal. Cannot believe that penalty was the way it was. If it's sour grapes, it's sour grapes. That's fine. I'm not a Colts hater. As I mentioned before, I grew up a Colts fan. That's just how I feel. Sorry. Moving into the Falcons, John Parker Romo, 5 for 5 on field goals. Literally signed with the team, I believe, over the weekend. It might have been on a Friday. I can't remember exactly when he joined the team, but to come out, win yourself player of the game in conjunction with Leonard Floyd, who he literally met in the post-game meeting in an interview, I thought was pretty comical. I wasn't shocked that Penix ran into a little bit of trouble against Minnesota. They pressure like madmen, and Brian Flores literally hates quarterbacks, and you can just ask Tua about that. But the reality is that's the type of defense that they are over there in Minnesota. They are there to disrupt quarterbacks and take advantage of younger, inexperienced guys. So it is what it is. But the running game, unbelievable on the ground, 218 total yards rushing, and the defense. I gotta give Atlanta the flowers on defense, and every single sack that we see Atlanta get this year, I just want people to remember that a lot of people made fun of them for double dipping in the draft at edge rusher when they were literally the second worst pass rush in the NFL last season when it came to like pressure rate, sacks, like you name it. And Atlanta was basically only better than the Patriots last year, and that was basically it. So for them to double down in the draft the way they did, you're now seeing those rookies pay off, and you're getting some real good help in the middle of that defensive line as well. 6 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 11 quarterback hits. It feels like they fixed that defensive front problem this offseason, and a lot of people made fun of them for drafting Jalen Walker and then trading up for James Pierce. They went and got 2 guys they loved. One of them they couldn't believe was on the board when they were there, and the second guy was the guy they were going to get because they accepted him as the option that was going to be available, and they really liked him as well. And they got both. And Leonard Floyd is shining as well in the spots that they need him to as a pass rusher. Basically all you need him to do. He doesn't need to be the guy. The rookies are standing out and looking good. Hats off to Atlanta for a strong offseason, I would say. And at this point, a missed field goal away from potentially being even 2-0 if things broke their way beyond that field goal against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. So really in a good spot, if you ask me, for Atlanta. Lions at 1-1. I definitely owe Detroit an apology. I took Chicago for the upset in their game this past week, and another one of those games where I just kind of sat there eating my words. One thing I've got to say, Jared Goff, man, 5 touchdowns this past week, basically making a statement to everyone, including Ben Johnson and anyone else who may have just been thinking, it was Sean McVay and then it was Ben Johnson. Jared Goff's not actually that great of a quarterback. Well, 5 touchdowns and just completely demolished Chicago defensively from start to finish. Hats off to Jared Goff on that one. That's not only a victory, but I would say a moral victory on top of that. And I also just want to shout out because, and I say this completely sarcastically, I do not believe this, but I do want to shout out the slot merchant, Amon-Ra St. Brown, somebody who I've beat my chest about and defended because I think that's just a ludicrous nickname to give the guy. But whatever, shout out to him. Looked pretty damn good this past week, just got to say. The Commanders right above them at 1-1. The O-line struggling to protect. No real push up front for the run game as well. And now you're also dealing with an injury to Jaden Daniels. We'll see how long that puts him out. It sounds like it's a knee injury, so we'll see what happens there. But the defense just not having a ton of answers, and especially against Tucker Kraft. So the Commanders, not like the most impressive win over the Giants last week. It was at 21-6, and it felt like the offense was really working to get those 21. And then this past week, it just felt like you could not really ever find your footing. And I'm not super concerned about Washington right now. If Jaden Daniels misses extended time, then I really am concerned. As of me recording, I don't have an answer to that yet. Still waiting to see what happens, but definitely something worth keeping an eye on. The Chiefs, right above them at 0-2. And I've alluded to this a couple of times about not all 0-2 teams are built the same. When Mahomes is leading the team in rushing yards, something is clearly not right offensively, and I am in the camp that once Rashee Rice is healthy, once you get Xavier Worthy back from his shoulder injury as well, and he's actually 100%, we might start seeing a more realistic view of what this Chiefs offense could potentially be, because the defense is still in a good spot. Like, I'm not worried about the defense. They continue to remain strong. Stopping the tush push is literally impossible for everyone. And when the Eagles play count is like 11.7% tush push calls, like, it is what it is. That feels like, and we can have that conversation with the Eagles in a second, but it's a tough start on the schedule. You have the Chargers, who obviously look very good so far this season and are probably competing for real this year under the second season of Jim Harbaugh. And then you have yourself, of course, the second game being the defending Super Bowl champions. You're 0-2. You lost each game by 1 possession. I'm not going to start panicking yet. Another loss would really make me need to reconsider where this Chiefs team stands. So all eyes on them for that this week. But I need to see it before I believe it. That's kind of how I felt with the Patriots throughout their entire dynasty. Until I see it, it's hard for me to believe. Sorry. Greatness earns that kind of respect. And then right above them, to round out the category, we have the Rams. And this was one that I had a really hard time with. Mainly the only thing that's kind of holding me back right now is that you had a kind of uncomfortably close game last week with the Rams. And then this week it was tight until it wasn't. So that's kind of my one real critique about the Rams right now. I just want to see a little more of a decisive win against lesser opponents the next time around. That being said, there needs to be a real conversation about Puka Nacua and just how good he is and where he actually ranks amongst the best wide receivers in the NFL. I feel like I'm personally a lot higher on him than some others are, and I'm not going to stand for the Matthew Stafford feeds as number ones. It's just not the conversation I'm willing to entertain. I think that's stupid. What are you supposed to do? Not throw to your best receivers? You can only target a guy 7 to 10 times and him have elite production for him to be a good receiver. That's just a ridiculous conversation. So, but from what they've been able to do on offense, obviously now you're getting to see Devontae Adams get into the mix a little bit as well. And then on top of that, the defense just so young, so talented, very special across all 3 levels of the unit. I just want to see them more decisively beat lesser opponents. If you win tight games against elite competition, fine, so be it. That's not a big deal. But again, the Titans game, the final score, made the game look a little bit wider than it actually was. And even last week's game, you would have liked to see, with a now 0-2 Texans team that is clearly struggling, I would have liked to see a little bit of a wider gap between them and Houston. Just, again, small critiques. Maybe I'm nitpicking. If I am, whatever, so be it. And then to round things out at the very top of the NFL, the Super Bowl contenders category, and we're about to cause some stir, I'm sure. Coming in at the bottom of the group, the Chargers. Then we have the Buccaneers, the Ravens, the Bills, the Eagles, and then the Green Bay Packers sitting at the top of the list here. We're going to stake our claim this week. So the Chargers at 2-0, they remade their running back room this offseason to what feels like just fake everybody out into thinking they were going to be this run-heavy team and then just unleash Justin Herbert to absolutely dice up defenses, whether it's through the air or on the ground with his legs. I don't know if last season was some long-term story, WWE style storytelling, where we're gonna make everyone think that we're gonna be this run-heavy first offense and not put all the weight on Justin Herbert's shoulders, and then proceed to literally let Justin Herbert just cook defenses this year. That's how it feels to me in that type of a perspective. Fingers crossed that Khalil Mack, his elbow is okay. Dayon Henley in the middle of that defense, I had Chargers fans going off about how good he was going to be to me earlier in the offseason, and I am definitely learning and respecting what he brings to the table here. You guys have a legit dog in the middle of that defense, and he's only in, I believe, year number 2 of his career, so this defense looks primed and ready to be as good as they were last year, and so far, so good, if I would say so myself. The 3 picks off Geno Smith yesterday, there's a lot of people that can get a lot of praise on the defense, but the offense looked good as well. Quentin Johnston continues to be a wild thing to witness because he will be catching 60-yard touchdowns and also dropping catches that you go, how the hell did you drop that, Quentin? I thought we were... it feels like he's having a good season, but he needs you to remember who he actually is kind of game. It's very interesting how that keeps playing itself out. But Chargers, nonetheless, look good at 2-0. Couple of big wins for them so far to start the season. Dominant win against a lesser team in the Raiders. Decisive win over a Kansas City Chiefs team, AFC Championship representatives of the last 3 Super Bowls. So good start to the year on their part, and I think that they're priming themselves up for a little bit of a run this year. Buccaneers right above them. Baker's a gamer. The Bucs running back room is unbelievable with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, and it feels like as the game rolls on, those guys just become impossible to stop. I am concerned about the offensive line. Offensive tackles need to get healthy. You saw Gadecki struggle really hard last night. He tried to play, ultimately had to get taken out. I think it was in the first quarter, if I'm remembering correctly, and you're still waiting on Tristan Wirfs to come back as well. You're just not in a great place as far as offensive tackles go, and once Gadecki got pulled out, the offense literally flatlined until the final drive of the game. And at that point, it was, you had to be smart about the playmaking, and it was taking advantage of a tired defense that was coming at you from the moment Gadecki got pulled to literally that final drive where you were getting teed off by the edge rushers. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter were causing problems. So I like the Buccaneers. I really do. I've been high on them. My Super Bowl contenders category so far has stayed fairly similar. The Chargers just took the Chiefs spot essentially so far, but I felt pretty confident about where the Bucs are. Once their offensive line is good and healthy, they can hang with the best of them because I respect Todd Bowles and his defense and what they're doing. It looks like they're even starting to get better. One of the biggest issues was that they were just letting way too many plays get by them in the secondary. That even seems like it's starting to get cleaned up a bit. This Buccaneers team looks really, really good. Right above them is the Ravens, 31 points dumped on Cleveland in the second half is the most of Lamar Jackson's career, I believe, in a second half, if I remembered seeing that stat, and that was the way it was written correctly. Maybe correct me if I said it wrong, but I believe that's what it was. This is the exact type of win you want to see. A little bit tight that first half, trying to feel yourself out. Division rival opponent, it is what it is. Cleveland's defense, for what it's worth, is not nearly as bad as the offensive situation that they're in. I feel like there's going to be games where, even last week, I guess is a good example of it, but there's going to be games where Cleveland's defense maybe holds them into it, but ultimately I just don't trust their offense to really get a whole lot done. So, and after 2 weeks, I don't really think my opinion's going to get changed on that anytime soon. But that second half is exactly what you wanted. And I will say this, a little bit surprised that Derrick Henry didn't just absolutely demolish Cleveland based off of the things that they were saying leading into that game, but hats off to Lamar. Excellent performance on his part. Looked every bit of an MVP-worthy caliber player. as he does every single game. So great, decisive win over a poor opponent. Bills right above them. Basically, you could like rinse and repeat what I'm saying about that. Decisive win over a lesser opponent, division rival, 30-20. Josh Allen's a menace, man. That dude's face was all messed up. I don't know if he got like hit in the face or something like that. His nose was bleeding, whatever it may have been. Dude did not care, came back into the game. You're also getting great contributions from guys that earned themselves contracts this offseason, like a James Cook. Defensively, a guy like Joey Bosa that you went out and got to add to the defense, making plays for you as well. Bills are the Bills. Eagles right above them. Grindy football, very grindy football on both sides, and it's fascinating to watch the lack of like offensive output you're really getting from Philadelphia so far this year, and they're winning. Obviously, from the offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball, like this team is just littered with talent, and so they're going to be a tough team to beat. You have got to find a way to be more physical than Philadelphia is against you in order to beat them, and credit to the Chiefs, they hung in there. But there is definitely something that feels like is going on in the end, or there's something going on. Excuse me, I just like tripped over my tongue there. There is something going on within the NFL, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't obvious that there was clearly false starts happening, but like it almost feels like there is a large contingent of the NFL that is not happy the tush push didn't get banned, and that now the media is getting so loud about it, and like you're hearing was it the I forget who it was that was on the officiating call with the broadcast for that Chiefs-Eagles game. I'm forgetting his name right now. I know what it is. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But like the fact that he was just outright like, it's a tough play to officiate. Officials are getting tired of it, blah, 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 blah. Like it feels like we might be seeing the tush push get taken away from Philadelphia at the end of this season. So if that's what's going to happen as long as the officials can just make sure they're calling false starts when they're there because they were there, like that's got to be dealt with and corrected. But like, I don't know. I don't really know where I stand on the tush push anymore. I was very much like, don't ban it, like figure out how to stop it. But we're getting to the point now where it's like, it's a large portion of the offense to the point where something might need to be done. I officially do not have a stance on it as it currently is. I don't really like that they're getting away with so many false starts and nobody's calling it. Like that is another problem. And if it's officials thinking that it's hard to officiate, like I don't see a good end result for that. So I don't know. Great football team though. 2-0 for a reason. You got to win over a division rival. You got to win over the Chiefs again. Good 2-0 football team. They're going to be tough to beat all season long. And then finally, to round it out, the Green Bay Packers. I was high on them coming into the season. I was really high on them when they got Micah Parsons. I got criticized for having them where I did in the rankings. At 2-0 with convincing wins over two playoff teams from last year in both the Lions and the Commanders, where they made both those teams look like they should not be in the same conversation as them. The Micah Parsons effect is very real. Green Bay went from having pass rush questions and potentially it being a weakness this season to it being a strength now because Micah Parsons is opening up so much, like just so many opportunities for other guys. And then on top of that, the offense, extremely efficient, capitalizing on what defenses are giving to them. Jordan Love, the receivers, the run game, everything feels like it's running flawlessly through 2 weeks. It's a long season. That could very well change soon. But I will say this. This Jordan Love looks like the Jordan Love of 2023 that got him paid going into 2024. He gets hurt. Last year was a bit of a mess. I have stood on this for a while. Did not think that last year was a true reflection of Jordan Love and what he's actually able to do. This feels like the Packers' year. And I like them at number 1 right now. We'll see what happens, but I like them at number 1. That being said, those are my rankings going into week number 3 of the NFL. As always, comment down below. Let me hear from you all. Likes, dislikes, things you agree with, disagree with. What are your rankings? Fire away. Always want to hear from you. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.